industry and continued growth has helped mold him into a true student of marine canvas trade. So the topic today is standards. What can you standardize about your business for repeatability? Jim and I were talking this morning. I'm actually looking to sell my business. Any offers? Okay. And what a new buyer would want to look for is repeatability. You know, what am I buying? And if that new person can walk in with your staff and there are procedures in place, then it's a much more marketable business. That being said, we probably don't think we have processes and procedures because everything's up here. But we do. And even though every product we make is different, there's something the same about each one. So the storyboards that are on the tables behind you, and I want you to look through them, but the concept is this. If you've got a new hire, and they're going to be making a bimini top, what's it doing? It's pockets, it's flaps, it's pieces. So right behind Rob and Nancy there is the board that shows the 14 pieces that you need to cut for a 3-bow bimini, and how to finish pocket, how to bind an edge. So you can show that to a new person who doesn't understand the lingo. Think about it, where, you know, this is a flap, this is a pocket, and we were talking, somebody else calls a flap a lapel, somebody else calls it a visor. Well, you can physically show your new hire this board, and you can see how much fabric to turn back for a zipper. You can see how many turns there are in the end of a pocket, and each different technique is spelled out on those boards. So it takes less time from you explaining the same thing over and over again, and it clearly defines what you're expecting as a result. So purposefully, those things are done, you know, and Tanya, you as a one-man show, it's not even exclusive to shops with employees. Yeah. You can have a customer walk in and say, how are you going to build this bimini top? And you can say, hey, here's how I'm going to finish your pocket so it doesn't fray. Here's how I'm going to heat cut my fabric so it doesn't fray. Here's the Teflon thread I'm going to use so you don't have to restitch. So it's a really handy tool for every shop, I think. So while we're waiting for Clint to check in, if you guys want to take a look at those boards, look through them and see what he's got. He's got examples of different kinds of seams, different flaps. Just help yourselves and try not to breathe on anybody.
It does look like Clint is here with us now. Clint, I see you are on microphone. I don't see that you're on video if you intend to be on video, however.
Yeah, I want to be on video. I don't see where to turn it on.
Okay, do you see your the webinar control panel? You should see menus that include things like sharing, webcam, audio, chat. There we go.
There I am.
I'm just going to click the start button real quick. You might hear an automated voice for about 10 seconds.
Okay.
Okay, perfect. Clint, you are on video. Your audio seems to be coming in loud and clear.
Good.
Everyone on the convention center side can see and hear you, and we can see and hear them. We have our other IFAI staff member, Christine, managing the laptop there, so she may keep them muted during parts of your presentation and unmute them when it's time for Q&A. But beyond that, at this point, I think you've been introduced, so you should be good to go.
How do I share my slides here? How do I?
Oh, yes, of course. I'm going to go ahead and send over, let's see. I'm going to give you control here. You should get a pop-up asking you to share your screen.
Okay, I did.
There we go. Now we can see, it looks like maybe some presenter notes.
Okay, so we're on the wrong screen. Let me move all this over here then.
There we go.
Move this all out of the way. Sorry, everyone, bear with me.
It's all good. There we go. Okay. Now we can see your slides and you're good to go. I'm not going to be involved in this at all. I'm going to keep myself on mute and just manage the technology side of things. So if anything weird should happen audio and video wise, I'll chime in.
Okay. Awesome. Thanks for the introduction, Katie. That was a lot more than I intended to hear. That was awful nice. Thank you. How many of you, I'm going to talk about standards today, and I guess my first question is, how many of you have made something and you made a mistake, and then a year or so later you made the exact same mistake on something? Never? You guys have never had that issue? Okay, there we go. All right, there we go. How many of you possibly think that maybe standardizing things could help solve that problem? That's a pretty general question. I think we could all agree. How many of you have standards? Just think about these. How many of you wish that your standards might be better cataloged and organized? How many of your standards might just be in your head or in one of your team members' head? That's a pretty scary thought. We were there about for the first 15 years of our business, 14, 15 years of our business. And I'm gonna help you share with you the tool we created to help standardize our shop and our production. I think we can all agree that standards are essential to growing our business. Most of these seminars you go to, you probably hear the word standardization over and over and over again. The challenge here isn't the what, it's more the how is where we struggle. Is how do we standardize this? How do we get started? Where do we go from here? Today I'm going to show you how we standardize our products from start to finish, all of our main products, the goal here really is to be able to standardize a custom product so that we can build something new and unique, but have a common language amongst the team and have a common process to do it. I'm going to show you how we used to do it with physical patterns. The standard boards you have there, I believe you have our folding canopy, our bimini top, and one of our finishing boards. The bimini has a lot more convex pattern on it because that was one of the first boards we started with, and that's where we were. Now about 90% of the work that we do here is digital. A lot of our work is repetitious and OEM work now too. We have evolved and we do work for Centurion and Supreme boats. And so again, being able to replicate the same products over and over again has been essential. Today, the agenda, the things I'm going to talk about is building and changing your culture to embrace standards. I'm sure, as you all know, if you have any team members that bringing something new to the table can be kind of a challenge to get everyone to buy in on. I'm going to define what a standard is so we're all on the same page. We're going to talk about how documenting standards are going to help your organization. We're going to show you our standard boards, kind of how we built them, what they consist of, and what goes on them. And then hopefully give you some ideas of where to start. And we'll include topics from physical patterns to if you're in the digital realm of things. So culture. Culture is my number one thing that I care the most about in our organization. It has kind of taken over a lot of my daily tasks because I believe that quote that you see there, that culture eats strategy for breakfast. I think I've seen it in our shop that we have always been able to build really good widgets. The difference from getting us from where we were to where we are is our team. And before, we could build a really good widget, but maybe our culture wasn't where we wanted it to be, so we were limited by that culture. Once we had the right culture in place and the team knew where we were going and they knew the boundaries in which to stay in, we were able to really propel forward. So I truly believe that if you build the best widget in the world and have a poor culture, it's not going to go anywhere. Whereas if you are an average widget builder, but you develop a really strong culture, your team will take that and your widget's going to improve, and they're going to take care of your customers, and then your customers are going to ultimately pay you more money, and ultimately you'll be able to return that back to your team members. So ways to build a productive culture. There's a million ways of doing this. Here are some few that we have found to be very, very valuable. I recommend that you start with sharing the why. and this includes sharing your vision of where you want your organization to go. It's really important that your team knows where you're going and why you're going there. With regards to introducing a new process like the standard boards, if you're going to utilize that tool, the why is probably the most important thing that your team members will care about. And so why you'll do it? Well, it's going to help us increase efficiencies, which should help us be more profitable and ultimately allow the business to pay the team members more. And that's ultimately the reason they show up to work. Next, if you don't have core values, I recommend you establish core values. If you have a team of any size, whether it's 2 or 3, or even, quite honestly, even by yourself, all the way up, and you don't have core values written on paper, I can assure you that you already have them, you just don't have them written down. Your team knows how you guys are operating. So establish core values, get them written down. In our shop, we have 4 core values. We used to have a lot, and we really narrowed them down. But our 4 core values are people matter, live by the golden rule, teamwork doesn't seem work, work like a predator, not like prey, and ring the bell of excellence. So I establish core values, super important. Once you have established core values, you've taught the why, and your team knows which direction you're going, give them autonomy to run with it. If they don't have the core values and they don't know the why, the challenge with giving them autonomy is they might be chasing something that the company is not chasing. So that's where the autonomy needs to have guide rails. They need to have boundaries to stay in, but you need to let them go out and use their wisdom and their experience to help improve things. Catch people doing the right thing. I think this is really important because it's really easy to get bogged down in the weeds and focus on the things that are going wrong. So catching people doing the right thing and becoming what I've heard referred to as a good finder, I think can be very beneficial. With the standards specifically, one thing that we've done to help get our team to actually utilize them and use them, and they still don't use them as much as we would like them to, but we make a big deal out of it randomly when we see people using them. Justin or myself will often throw out $20 bills and make a big deal about it, like, hey, look at Rebecca, she's got her standard board. Way to go to reference that. So catching people doing the right thing will really help lift morale. And when you make a big deal about it, the rest of the people in your shop will see that and they'll start copying it because they want to be recognized as well. Encourage a growth mindset. The reason why this is super important is because through this process, you will find that you're going to make lots of mistakes and throw lots of these standards away. You're going to get all the way to the finish line of having the sample, and you're going to look at it and go, nope, I don't like it, or it's missing this one thing, and we got to redo it. So encourage a growth mindset, because it's every time you make a mistake or you fail, it's truly an opportunity to learn. If you want to know more about a growth mindset, I really recommend Carol DeWitt's book entitled Mindset. It goes into depth on that a lot. Lead by example. I think this is by far the most important one up there. If showing up to work on time is important to you, don't show up 5 minutes late or 2 minutes late. Be early. If using the standard boards are important to you, make sure you're using the standard boards. It's really demoralizing to be reprimanded or kind of called out on things that leadership is doing. So make sure you're leading by example. Really quickly, this is my first webinar. So if you have questions, let's engage. I think these are more enjoyable if we can engage. I know in person I like to talk a lot when I'm in these, so I like to ruin the seminar. So please, if you have something, raise your hand and hopefully we can have some dialogue. As we go from there, we're going to talk about what a standard is and what a policy is. You might have different opinions of these definitions. My main thing that I want to get across here is that we're on the same page so that we know exactly what they are. So for this presentation, a standard is a series of steps, notations, instructions, and expectations for a finished product. So in our shop, when we refer to a standard, it's how we are building something. It is the process that we go through to actually fabricate something and the expectations we have to do it. Whereas we refer to policies as dealing with the business side of things, like an attendance policy, requesting materials, taking orders, and those kinds of things. Again, you may have different opinions, but we're talking about standards today, so we're talking about getting product out the door. I want to talk about how documenting standards are going to help your organization. I am pretty sure that all of you have really good ideas already of what that entails, but I just wanted to go over this really quickly. Infrequent products. Ironically enough, our standard boards started with an infrequent product. We actually do these, what we refer to as sofa sets, and we do them for about 2 to 3 months a year, and then we forget about them for the next 9 to 10 months a year. And every year, for like 3 or 4 years in a row, we would come February, we would start building them again, and we would make the same mistake over and over again. We would sew our zipper flap onto our zipper, and our zipper flap would be like 3 to 4 inches shorter than it should be because we allowed it to bunch up on the zipper. And that was super frustrating. So Justin came in one day, his hair on fire, with this great idea that he had that we're going to make a sample, we're going to cut out these boards, and we're going to put standards on these boards. So the first sample that we ever made was a really dramatized version. We really pulled on the zipper and pushed on the flap to really make it really, really bad. We put that on the board and we said, don't make this mistake. And since then, we have not made that mistake ever again, because when we go to do these in the beginning of the year, our team grabs these boards, they flip through it real quick as a quick reminder how to do this, and they don't make that mistake anymore. So it's been really good. So infrequent products. Training. It really helps with training, especially as we are growing and have 6 people out there sewing and 1 person full-time cutting and 2 CAD people. It really, really helps because we're able to do the same thing over and over again and have a step-by-step process in teaching. It keeps our team members on the same page. So one thing that has always been really important to us was to make sure that whatever we're delivering looks like it was made by So Long and not by Rick, not by Esmeralda, not by Taylor. We want it to look like it's made by So Long. So it helps us deliver the same product over and over again, regardless who is doing the majority of the work on the project. And the other thing that it really helps with is vocabulary, so that when we use certain words and certain phrases, we're all referring to the same thing and know what we're talking about. It will help limit rework and modifications. I wish I could say it prevents that. Unfortunately, we're still making mistakes, but I can assure you that it has increased, it has limited the number of rework and modifications. It increases efficiency because we're doing the same thing regardless what the product is. We're able to have the muscle memory, if you will, or just the memory of how to do things. So when we see something, we recognize that from doing it the other day. We're able to do it more quickly and more efficient. Accountability. This is really a really nice one because it holds the team member accountable and leadership accountable. If we make a mistake, we can grab the sample board, we can grab the team member, and it's not about getting them in trouble because, again, if you have that awesome culture, when mistakes happen, everyone is pretty bummed out, quite honestly, and the person that made the mistake is even more bummed out. So we're able to grab it and we say, okay, what did we learn here? How did we make this mistake? Where did we go wrong? We can look at the sample board. And then if it's not on the sample board, ultimately it's leadership's problem. It's our fault for letting our team down, for not having that standard in place. I know that when I make a mistake and it goes wrong, and I take my personal accountability and I go to Esmeralda, who's in charge of our sewing department, and go, look, this was my fault. Can you please fix it? She's way more willing to jump on my problem and solve it if I take that accountability and invulnerable and all that stuff. So it helps with accountability. This is one topic that we didn't see initially, but it's an awesome sales tool. We actually made sample boards that are in our showroom, and they actually go with us to boat shows and stuff, because then we can actually show the customer this is exactly how we're going to go around your tower. This is how this edge will be finished. This is how your vent is sewn on. And with repairs, it's really nice too, because then when someone comes in with a repair, we can look at it and go, okay, this is the kind of patch we're going to put on it. And they see the patch, we reference the patch, and the sewing department gets to do the repair, and they know exactly what the customer is expecting. So it's a really awesome, turned into a really awesome sales tool as well. And as Katie alluded to, it makes your business much more valuable. When you start looking at your exit strategy, someone is going to be much more willing to pay high dollar for your organization if what you're doing is repeatable. If all of your processes and standards are all in your head, you're the one who's valuable, not your organization. So it's going to make your business much more profitable. Quick side story real quick. We started doing these in around 2016, and it took us a good 2 years to get kind of anything rolling as far as having the good standards in place, our team utilizing them regularly. It's still an ongoing push. We're constantly updating them and improving them. But from 2016 to 2018, we had roughly the same team size. However, in 2018, we had a 21% increase in production. And I believe that it accounts to a lot to our team, but it also accounts a lot to having something to reference and repeat the same thing over and over again. So what are standard boards? What are they and what's on them? This is a photo of where we store our standard boards. We built this rack to kind of store them in. The way that they are made is they're just expanded PVC cut and routed, just boards with nuts on them. You can see the samples you have there, they have little wing nuts on them. Originally, we had regular nuts on them, just T-nuts and regular nuts, but we found that we were throwing a lot of standards away. So it made it a lot faster to use the wing nuts to pull them off and replace them. So there they are. We have two sizes of standard boards, and we'll go over those really quickly. We have our item board. This is, for us, an item is a common product. So in our shop, we have an item board, so the larger boards for bimini tops, cinch covers, storage covers, snap covers, enclosures, and houseboats. So we don't do a lot of houseboats anymore, but we still have one for like our houseboat products. So the benefit to these boards is they are a little bit larger, so the samples are able to be a little bit bigger and have kind of every step built into them. We would utilize both the pattern material and the CAD file drawings on there because they need to cross-reference each other, and they're used to teach and assist the team in production. And you have two of these boards there, the larger boards, the item boards that you guys can thumb through. Then we have our finishing boards, and our finishing boards or miscellaneous boards are usually a little bit smaller. The key to these boards really is to be able to produce a custom product with standards. We want to be able to standardize a custom product. So on these boards, you'll have how we do all of our pockets, how we do all of our hems, how we do all the facing, the grommets and snap installation and fasteners, the straps like the side release buckles or any tie downs you're going to use, yard covers. We use them for yard covers because they're pretty straightforward, cushions, and repairs. So these boards are a little bit smaller, and you'll see when you look through ours, they go into a little more detail. You're going to want to make sure that you have naming conventions, and we'll go over that too, but the naming conventions need to cross-reference across all patterns. So what's on the board? What we put on our standard board, on our item board, is a checklist. For us, when we refer to a checklist, we refer to the things that we commonly forget. So if you find yourself ever forgetting your visibility line on your enclosure, put it on a checklist. That way you will hopefully not forget it anymore. For me, when we were doing physical patterns, I often forgot where to put my snap patch and mark where I wanted my vents. So those ended up on the checklist, and we forgot them a lot less. Started remembering them. You want samples of the template. So whether you're doing CAD or physical patterns, you're going to want to make sure that you have a sample of the template that has detailed information on it so that someone can reference it and try to duplicate it. Normal features of an item. So the way you always finish on this particular item, how you do your edge, how you finish your edge, how you do your pockets, all of that information. Abnormal, but frequent. So a good example in our shop of this is on a bimini top. Most of them are round tubing runabout boats or cruisers, but every now and then we get a pontoon boat in, and it has that light on the back of the bimini frame, so you have to do a cutout for it. So we standardize that, put it on there so that when we get that once a year, we can quickly reference it and know exactly how to do it and not have to reinvent the wheel every single time. Symbols, notations, and key example. So what I mean by that is the naming conventions that you're using for certain products. So when we want to vent somewhere, we have a very specific drawing that goes on pattern for event. Or for example, if one of our sewers, we use the SRB straps a lot, and we refer to them as T1, T2, T3. So if our sewer sees a T1, she knows or he knows that it goes on the finished side of the binding on the top. If, for example, they see a T3, that goes on the inside of the cover with a patch on it. And if they see a T2, it's sewn into the pocket. So they know every single time that it's that way. And if they see a T1 on a product, they're not normally used to seeing this. They know because of our standardization, they don't have to question, hey, what is this? They just know to put it there and don't have to stop and ask a leader. You want notes of tips and tricks for the task. So you can see on our board, there's a lot of handwritten notes all over it. And these are really helpful for training sewers, new sewers especially, but also you'll see on the Canvex patterns that I've got notes on there for how to do everything. And then in our CAD files, we also have the same thing. We have very detailed notes in our CAD files on what's expected. If you're in the CAD world, CAD illustrations, or you have the ability to do CAD illustrations, they're super helpful as well, especially cutaway drawings, because you can show how you want the hem done and all those kind of things. So the miscellaneous and finished boards, this is where you get really down nitty and gritty, in our opinion, on the naming conventions and the symbols and stuff for that particular product. You're going to want to make sure that you have notes and information to execute the task. You're going to want to have CAD illustrations if you can do that, and you can kind of see all that on the little item board we have there. It's got lots of notes. It has all the naming conventions. It has a breakdown of what the letters mean and the numbers mean and where they are. So, for example, I'll show you a photo here of one of our TSRB straps before I jump ahead. Samples showing the finished product, and you can see that on the board. There's how we sew and everything. And you'll notice on that finished board, there's a lot of edges. There's a whole bunch of different kinds of hems, a whole bunch of different kinds of facings, a whole bunch of different kind of pockets. And the reality is that we use probably 2 or 3 from each one of the pages, but we want to be able to, again, standardize a custom product. If this customer is requesting this specific finishing edge, we want to be able to reference it. So we made a whole bunch of them, knowing that even though we have all of these, we really only use a few of them. So on your big item boards, again, you're going to want to be as detailed as you can possibly be. And you're going to want to go all the way from the patterning phase all the way through the install phase. The patterning phase and the install phase are a little more difficult because actually pulling a pattern is a lot more hands-on and a lot more, there's a lot of if, this, then situations. So that's more of a hands-on training, and still in our opinion, but still you want to have samples of how to do it and how to mark everything. So you want to be as detailed as you can possibly be. You want to have a sample of the templates with all the marks on it. You can kind of see in that photo, and you'll see on the actual board, there's a lot of notes on that pattern. How to draw on the fabric when you're cutting it out, how it's cut out, especially if you cut it out a unique way. Show how it's sewn and how the fasteners are installed. The CAD illustration it's the same thing. You're going to want to make sure you're as detailed as you can possibly be. Have samples of the CAD template. If you are using a CAD program and you know how to set up CAD template files or blocks, they're extremely helpful. That could be a whole other class on its own. But basically, when we open to go to make a cinch cover, we open the cinch cover CAD template file. It has all the instructions in it. It has blocks preloaded in it, so we don't have to redraw the vent every single time. We don't have to put our straps on, redraw the straps every time. They're already in there. So you can see here, and this is an example of a block in this square here. That's a T1 130. So if a sewer sees that, they know that's a TSRB1 strap, and the length of the webbing needs to be cut 130. And we don't have to redraw that because it's built into our CAD file, and we just place it in, so it makes it a little bit faster. And we have a sample of that on the board so that the sewer knows exactly what to expect. Again, you're going to want samples of how it's cut, sewn, and how the fasteners are installed. So where to start and taking the first steps, I guess my first suggestion is don't be afraid to fail. Being in Utah, we have a lot of lake boats, and our pastime on boats is water sports, skiing and stuff. So I thought this video was a good little video to kind of tie in where to start and how to learn real quick. Maybe.
Tell them what to go.
So the one thing I think that video doesn't show, it does show us falling flat on our face. The one thing it doesn't show is her getting back up and trying again. As I mentioned earlier, you're gonna get a sample board done or a specific standard done, and you're either not gonna like it or you're gonna change it in like 2 weeks. So you have to be malleable. You have to be willing to make mistakes. You have to be willing to try new things and fail. So where to start? I imagine there's a whole bunch of ways to start, but I think these are the kind of the 2 ways that I would kind of merge them together or do them one or the other. The first being is kind of jump in with both feet and solve the problems right in front of you. So an example of that is if 90% of your work is, say, bimneys and enclosures, start with either your bimney or your enclosure and build a board specifically for that. Start with everything on it, the pattern all the way to the end, and then add on to the next board. Because a scary part is man, I have to build all these boards. Like, let's start with one and get one done and utilize that and go from there. Make samples of the issues that come up or as the products come up. So like we had with our sofa set, constantly making that same mistake over and over again, we made a sample to remind us, don't make this mistake again. And we made it readily available. Or, hey, we know we're gonna do a lot of storage covers over the next few months. So let's stop right now and standardize these storage covers so that we can easily reproduce them over and over again. The more methodical way, I think, to do this might be more time consuming, but might sound easier for someone else, is to maybe start with the smaller boards and standardize your vocabulary, your naming conventions, and your symbols and whatnot for what you're going to refer to things as. And when you do that, when you name something in H1-1.5, for example, you got to know that name is now done, and you can only use it that one time, and it needs to be able to reference across all of your products. And then again, making sure it works across all your products. And then another way you could possibly do it, I think, is I'd probably write out a plan and write down all the products and what items we use everywhere and how they kind of tie together and go that route as well. I kind of burned through that being as I was a little bit late. Not a little bit, I was totally late. Sorry for that. Does anybody have any specific questions regarding the boards or where to start or culture? Crickets, huh? Man, that was good. We got one.
You might have to, Rod,
So you said initially that you do a meeting Mondays and Wednesdays.
Yes.
To work in culture, and how long would you say you spend? Would you do like a morning meeting, 15 minutes, half hour, trying to develop ideas, or does it vary each week depending on the?
Yeah. So that's a good question. They've evolved. Our morning meetings have really evolved over the last probably 3 to 4 years. And we still constantly adapt. We have a written agenda now, which has been very helpful. We go over, so our written agenda is Mondays, we focus on our mission statement. Wednesday, we focus on our core values. And that's kind of the first thing we touch on. And then immediately after that, we go into appreciation and gratitude, where we let the team open up the floor and we have the team recognize each other, kind of shout out each other, even brag on themselves sometimes. And then after that, we go over the work that needs to get done, the current schedule, like, hey, who needs time off, like what's going on this week, and then I'll go over our numbers as far as how much work we have to get done this week, how much we got done last week, where our percentages are, and then we jump back into production. I would say, depending on how long the appreciation part of it goes, it's probably 10 to 20 minutes long. Sometimes that appreciation moment goes for 5 to 10 minutes on its own. So on that's how we do our meetings. My suggestion would be to start with an agenda, because at first our agenda was kind of all over the place, and like we would start chasing squirrels that didn't need to be addressed in that meeting. So have an agenda and really work on sticking to that agenda. Recently, we've even started letting new people lead, different team members lead the meeting to give them opportunities to lead as well. That was a good question. Any other?
Frank Yankee Canvas. First off, I want to say I'm jealous that you're out in Salt Lake City. I do a lot of skiing out there occasionally, so it's a great place.
Oh, well, you need to come.
It's the first time I ever went there. Could you tell us what instruments you use for your digital patterning and what CAD software you use?
Yes. We use the ProLiner. We started out with Photo Modeler. I guess if we go back even farther, we started out with Rhino like 15 years ago, just drawing anything we could draw with a tape measure, anything we could measure and draw. We started there, and like then we would print out a paper and cut like this, and then we got a wide format printer and we would cut out some odd shapes. And then we got a ProCell plotter, so all we were doing was plotting things. And then after that, we got the ProLiner kind of shortly after that. And so now we use the ProLiner and Photo Modeler. We did use Photo Modeler. Everything is ProLine now, to answer your question. We ProLine everything. Even when we grab an old pattern and convert it, my CAD guy prefers to ProLine the pattern versus Photo Model. And I've heard that that's unusual, but that's what he likes, and he's getting it done in our expected amount of time. And then our table, we've upgraded to a ProCell cutting table. Next. Oh, that's it. That was easy.
No flattening software.
No, oh, ExactFlat. Yeah, we use ExactFlat. Sorry, I neglected that. We use ExactFlat. I want to play with mPanel, haven't gotten there yet.
So we're muting in between the questions because I guess there's an echo in the room.
Okay.
Did you hear his whole question?
Yeah. No, I don't know if I did. I must have missed part of it.
Why don't you want to just come up front and repeat your question?
Well, I think you did answer it. You use the ProLiner to pattern.
Okay. Yeah.
You use Rhino for the CAD program, and you use ExactFlat for the flattening software.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
That's
And you also have a plotter.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I'm asking this because I just started that process with ProLiner, Rhino, and a plotter, and I'm very new to it, so I'm just curious to see what others are doing in the industry. But thank you.
Yeah, it's got a learning curve, and I think once you figure it out, you're gonna love it. It makes repeating the same product over and over again really easy.
Right. Right. There is a learning curve, though.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, for sure. That's one thing they always kind of neglect when they do these digital seminars, is like the learning curve. But yeah, it's there. And when you're ever in Salt Lake, please stop by. Come see our shop. We'd love to have you.
I'll take you up on that. Thank you.
Yeah. That goes for anybody. Like, as Katie mentioned, we wouldn't be where we were if Justin didn't go out and work with her for a week. So we always offer that to anybody. If anybody wants to come and see what we're doing, even if you wanted to stay for a week, we'd put you to work. So by all means, come hang out if you're ever in the area.
Any other questions? Or, oh, here comes Katie.
Hi, Clint.
Hello, Katie.
When I think about trying to create the culture in your workplace, have you ever just gotten somebody who could not get on board?
Yes. Yes.
So you, how do you
Yeah,
handle that?
I can tell that story real quick if you don't mind. So we had a guy who worked for us for 5 or 6 years. He was the most consistent, always there, always on time, stayed from open to close every single day. His attention to detail was far superior than anybody else's. He was a lovable guy. He treated people like they wanted. He lived by the golden rule. He rang the bell of excellence. Teamwork was where he struggled, and he actually did that. But work like a predator, not prey, was where he really struggled. He just really struggled to get on board with the new changes we were doing. We moved him, we kept offering him new positions in the organization. Do you want to do this? Do you want to do this? And it seems like everywhere we put him, there was a lot of resistance. He would come in and ask how to do something. We would explain how to do something, and then we would go out 15 minutes later and see him doing it a completely different way. We'd kind of scratch our head on why he asked to begin with. And then he would complain that there wasn't enough teaching, and he really lacked accountability. And when we made the decision to let him go, it was a unanimous leadership decision, and it was extremely difficult. We thought that the team would resent it because, again, everyone loved him. We all love him. Like, we spent time at Justin's cabin with his family for 5 years consecutively. So it was a really hard decision. When we took that 15-minute awkward conversation and had the awkward conversation and let him go, our team was like, "What the hell took so long? Why did you guys let him stay around for so long?" So we gave him all the grace we could possibly give him. We kept challenging him over and over again. Most people, when they are challenged, will change. They'll adapt, and everyone wants to feel like they're winning. And so to be challenged and accused that you're not winning is kind of a bummer. But he really struggled. Ironically enough, he's actually working for Justin's dad now and thriving in that culture. So I'm happy that he's in a better place. And we all miss him, yet at the same time, the team is like, seriously, like, what took so long? Like, he didn't live up to all 4 core values.
Hi, I have a question for you. The people that start to come into your company, do they have sewing experience, or are they all different levels? Can you elaborate on that?
Like hiring new team members?
Yes, when you hire new team members, where are they coming from? Do they have sewing experience, or are they coming in completely green?
Our experience thus far is that people with sewing experience have had baggage a little bit and they're awesome on the sewing machine, but they're not fitting in with the culture. Our newest 3 people on sewing machines all had little to no sewing experience. And now, quite honestly, Crystal, who had absolutely no sewing experience, 19 years old, just wanted a job, walked in the door. She is one of the most productive sewers we have 9 months later. She is a rock star, and I see her leading somewhere in the organization soon. And then you have Rebecca, who had a little bit of sewing experience, and her skill set is a little bit different. She's more timid to push all the way on the gas, but her seams are super straight. She has a completely different skill set that we see her somewhere else. But so to answer your question, we hire now on culture, and we've changed our hiring process from who is the best person to apply, because that used to be the thing. Oh, this is the best person who applied, so we're going to hire them. We've changed it to, if they're not a hell yes, they're a no, which has hurt us a little bit because we need help, but like the turnover has gone down. Did that answer the question all the way?
Other questions or?
Did you guys all have time to flip through the sample board while I was late and kind of see how they're set up and have any questions on those?
So the demo boards are in the back of the room. If anybody wants to get up and look at them now. Okay.
We're done all morning.
All right. My contact information is there. If anybody has any questions, feel free to reach out. And truly, if you're in Salt Lake, swing by. Our shop isn't that impressive, but we love to talk shop, so come on by.
Okay. Thank you so much. Sorry to get you up so early.
Oh, it's my fault. For some reason I put it on the calendar an hour late. I'm sorry.
It's great. Great to see you. Give my best to the team.
Hey, congratulations on all your awards last week too.
I got awards?
They didn't tell you?
Christine.
I'm sorry to think of it. Yeah, you did.
All right, well, thanks guys.